Hello, my name is Kit Cabell. We're conducting a very special interview with Shana East. We've interviewed Shana East numerous times in the past on our show, and as we all know, she is a key organizer, grassroots activist, and she's been a leading cause for a lot of progressive movements here in the city of Chicago, and also getting herself involved with national and international progressive movements. So with that being said, Shana East, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
So there's a lot that's really happening for you right now. First, let's start off with the fact that you are running for delegate to the future Our Revolution Illinois State Organizing Committee. So for our viewers, subscribers, what does that mean? And also what does it mean for the future of Our Revolution on a national level?
So for a while, we've been trying to organize what's called the State Organizing Committee, which is like a larger governing body that would be comprised of delegates from each of the chapters across the state to, handle like sending endorsements to national, to building structure, to putting bylaws and, like sort of the nuts and bolts of building an organization, a statewide organization. Mm-hmm. So this is something I've been pushing for some time, and it's finally starting to happen where the chapter that I'm in, which is Our Revolution Illinois / Chicago, is going to be more of like a Chicago-based local chapter, and then Our Revolution Illinois will start to be like a statewide organizing committee. I think it's important because I think for the future of our revolution, we need to have it be like a very transparent, accountable, democratically run organization. And I think that's what people have been, talking to me about, that they've been looking for. They have time, they want to volunteer, they want to get involved, but they want to know like what it is they're getting involved in, like clear, transparent decision-making process and how our endorsements made, and have that all, start to build that, which sometimes when you start doing like a political organization, you might push that stuff off to the side because you might be busy with an election cycle or, other things take priority, and then that stuff gets put on the back burner. But I think in the long term, you need to like really like put that in the foreground, because people won't get involved as much if you don't have that all there and visible and available, and it's easier to show them how to get involved. And then each of the chapters across the state are going to be having an election in the next week or so. They're going to vote whether they want to be included in the state organizing committee, and if so, what 2 delegates will be sent to that committee.
All right, well, that's fantastic to hear, because, here in Illinois, a lot of districts were abandoned by the Democratic Party, and there's a lack of infrastructure for a real progressive movement here. Mm-hmm. And it seems like the phrase "our revolution" isn't going anywhere. So, now this looks like a case for it to really reach out to communities that perhaps for a long time didn't know that there would be an organization to stand up for them. So, what's the potential kind of outreach that you guys want to do towards counties outside of Cook County, for example? Like, is it sort of like building up more additional subchapters there?
That's what I think. I want to encourage more and more chapters to pop up, because I feel like organizers and people in that local area are going to have the best input as to how they should be organizing there. And so I want to influence Our Revolution Illinois. If I become delegate, I want more chapters. I want more like caucuses or committees or working groups, whatever we end up calling it. My suggestion is going to be to have these sort of like working groups that tackle a variety of issues. Like you could have a healthcare working group, or they could be like identity based. Like you could have a, Latinos, Our Revolution caucus or something, so that folks who are within the organization and want to join those groups can start doing work in those areas, but then also bringing in and listening to people who aren't necessarily a member of Our Revolution, but that we're listening to like the grassroots in a variety of issues or areas. So that's my idea. Again, it's like, these are just my ideas, and if I do get elected, I'm going to be part of a big group with a lot of delegates, so it's not like that's definitely going to happen, because there's going to be a democratic process for deciding what happens. But I think, I have a lot of experience like building movements and working on electoral campaigns and also starting political organizations. So I'm hoping that my experience will be valuable and appreciated at least.
Absolutely.
Whatever happens.
So there's going to be more further developments as the months and years go by.
Yeah, there's going to be like a state convention, which is the big thing that the delegates that get elected in the next week are going to go to the state organizing committee. And the first job of the state organizing committee is to prepare for a statewide convention. And at the convention is where a lot more of this discussion, decisions, and everything will be made as to like how we build the organization in Illinois.
All right, well, that's fantastic to hear. I'm definitely looking forward to hearing of any kind of follow-ups in regards to this. But also on social media, you've posted about your trip in Finland and speaking to other progressive groups. And a second part, you're working on an international left network that you're organizing, that you're helping to organize. So can you at least let our viewers and subscribers know like what happened in Finland in regards to talking to other like-minded progressives, and what is this international left network that you are helping to organize?
So I received an invite several months ago to come speak in Finland, and I thought that who was sponsoring me was a party there called the Left Alliance, which is one of they have 9 parties in power right now that have any representation in parliament, which is pretty interesting and I think a better system. But so it was once I got there that I found out that it was actually a larger group called the European Left that had sponsored me to come. And European Left is it's a coalition group of delegates from over 40 left parties across Europe who have some sort of representation in their parliaments within the European Union. So at the same time as the seminar that I initially came to speak, there was a working group meeting, the European Left, happening simultaneously. So not only did I get to meet, comrades from Finland, but I met delegates from all over Europe, from these various countries in different left parties that, are in some sort of power. It was an incredible, life-changing experience because I think on the left here in the US, we tend to like think of things hyper locally. And what changed for me was that internationally global trends and global movements like really do matter. And I found out that by talking to people from the various countries, and I realized what an impact the Bernie movement had globally from talking to all these people, that everyone was watching us. They were rooting for Bernie and they were like, I can't believe, someone who's a socialist is going to win in the US. And they were like, empowered in a way by what was happening with our work, which I didn't know who was paying attention, because the mainstream media didn't hardly cover it here. But people were paying attention. So that was amazing. And then there are also authoritarian far-right regimes popping up in all these different countries, independent from one another. So that's something that we have to think about, is like, how do we contend with not just Trumpism, but this is a worldwide phenomenon that's happening. In England, there's Brexit, but in other various countries, they're popping up, I think. There's probably a variety of reasons, but what might be one, from my opinion, is the refugee crisis, because refugees, hundreds and thousands and millions of refugees are fleeing Iraq, Iran, Syria, going into the European countries, and then these sort of nationalist, groups are popping up, I think, to say they shouldn't have the same rights as me, this is my country, the same kind of Trumpist thoughts. So I met a lot of people in Finland. I spoke at a seminar. I went to various cities and then had events there and learned about the different towns and what the working class history was. And they're much more progressive there than I think we are here when it comes to climate change, when it comes to feminism, a variety of things. The electoral system itself is more progressive. If you get 4% of the vote in Finland, you get funding, public funding. Wow. So that's how they're able to pay for things like this, to have, educational things. They have, a higher level of engagement, civic engagement, voting. Interestingly, they don't canvass and they don't phone bank. So their ways of campaigning are a lot more passive than here, which is another reason why they wanted me and several other U.S. Delegation to come and sort of tell them how we campaign in the U.S. to see if they can use some of our techniques.
That seems really interesting, because for a long time I volunteered for a few campaigns, and canvassing, knocking on doors, doing some phone banks. It seems kind of only natural, because that's what we do here in the United States. I didn't know that it was more passive in other, I guess, countries that have democratic elected systems in it. So by passive, you mean, do they just go out there and rally, or do they hold just simple town halls?
Yeah, there's like events that will happen in the town square in each of the towns, where the different but all the parties will have different tents, and people just kind of come, and then they walk around and they meet people and get information. But no one's like in their face like, "Hi, my name's Shana. Do you have a minute to talk about?" Or calling them, or it's just a cultural thing. They think it's like an invasion of privacy, but because of how they've been watching the work we do, they're like starting to consider some of the ways that we campaign here. I think we have to campaign like that here, because if we don't, no one will ever pay attention to what's going on. So maybe that's why we're, I don't know, more aggressive about campaigning here. But so going to these different cities and talking to a variety of people, it became clear that, there's very little information being shared, because we're relying on, a couple publications that might, like Jacobin might, publish something on Finnish politics. But if you're not like a subscriber to this, leftist magazine, then you're not gonna see that, So we were brainstorming ways that we could, share information back and forth at the very least, learn techniques and tactics for organizing, or, how like climate justice is being organized in the US versus Europe, like these kind of things. So also coincidentally, in The Guardian, that same week after we had been talking about all this stuff, Bernie Sanders published an article calling for the creation of an international left front to counter all of the authoritarian regimes popping up around the world. So we were like, Bernie's been listening to us. Like, this is our chance. Like, let's do it. So once I got back here, I had a lot of contacts, and I just started using them. I started, hey, we're going to have a Zoom conference on this date. And then the first conference, we sort of debriefed the whole trip, talked about ideas for working together moving forward. We came to the conclusion that this was a valuable thing to do, and that we were going to work together to create Zoom conferences on various topics. So we could have one just on like organizing, like teaching each other organizing tactics, or like the one we just had last week was on healthcare. So we talked about the U.S. systems for healthcare. We had a doctor on, and we had organizer from National Nurses United. And then from Finland, we had an academic who studies the healthcare system, and a nurse who's in one of the left parties there. And then we also had someone on from the UK system who works for NHS there. So we just, talked about the differences, and then there's a discussion afterwards. And it's super, I've learned so much in just like a month since I went on this trip and started talking to all these people that I never would have found out any other way.
And it seems that, from here on out, it looks like the progressive movement is growing internationally, and perhaps it could lead to huge changes in our country for 2020 for the presidential election cycle. However it may turn out, it seems that there's going to be a much more active leftist movement here in the United States. But looking at it, there's also another potential for more voices to be heard from the left, and we're actually going to focus it back on you, Shana, because you have something happening on October 28th. It's going to premiere on WCPT with your co-host, Samina Mustafa, who was a congressional candidate in the primary for 2018. You have a show to the left that's going to be coming out on October 28th. So basically kind of let our viewers and subscribers know what the show is going to be about, what's happening, what's the process, what's going on. And I know that it is a radio station, so also what frequency we'll be on too, in case our people want to tune in and listen.
Okay, so like a month or two ago, I was given an opportunity to come in and speak to the general manager of WCPT because of someone who had worked with him. She was in the radio industry for 20 years. She said that Shana has her finger on the pulse of what's going on in progressive politics right now, and bringing a new demographic to WCPT because their listeners tend to be progressive but older. And Ben Jarofsky's on the program. He is a staff member and he's on there Monday through Friday. And he has a particular point of view, but he's not like super progressive or super to the left. And his listeners tend to be older and less diverse. So they brought me in. I did sort of a pitch, and then they were like, okay, this is great. And then it's a big responsibility for me because I have so much stuff going on that I thought it would be smart to get a co-producer, co-host, just so it's like taking, I think it'll make it a better show overall because it'll be multiple points of view, like working on the same thing. But also, I got to know Samina through her congressional race. At the tail end, I met her and, we were talking to each other afterwards, and I think she's great. She's got an amazing progressive point of view. She knows a lot of people. She, does a great job on everything she does. I just thought she was like going to be super responsible and like just like me. When she says she's going to do something, she does it and does it well. And she's funny. So I asked her and she said yes. And so we decided to say, yes, and sign the contract. And so October 28th is going to be To the Left with Samina and Shana, airing Sundays at 1 p.m. on 8:20 a.m. WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Well, it's about time there's another progressive network out there to really bring out the voices to the voiceless. So I'm wishing you guys all the best on your show, and seeing Samina canvass and campaign for her campaign. She came in second during her primary race. It's quite clear that you are right. She does get things done. So that being said, I want to move into a much more somber thing that you want to talk about, or at least that you mentioned on social media as well, and that is, you mentioned, and correct me if I'm wrong, some limitations with the Me Too movement. Or do you want to clarify that, or is there some sort of, I guess, word that needs to get out about the Me Too movement that you want to share?
So, I mean, a lot of women, a lot of survivors have been, struggling this past couple weeks with the Brett Kavanaugh nomination and, the accusations against him and all the media circus surrounding it. It's been extremely difficult for people. And, this is something that I thought, but so with the Me Too hashtag, I think a lot of survivors sometimes for the first time were telling people on social media, like, here's my story, this happened to me. Like, and a lot of family was finding out for the first time things that had happened to their family member, like it was opening up a floodgate of like emotion and experience, and like it really put into perspective like how many women are affected by sexual harassment, assault, rape. But that's sort of where it stands. I mean, we all came out with our stories, people shared, people felt like kind of a community by mutual grief in a way. But the problem with the Me Too hashtag is that it really just calls out like individual perpetrators of sexual harassment or sexual violence, gendered violence, and it doesn't deal with systemic issues. Like I was noticing that hardly any men would comment on all these posts. And I was sort of like, where are the men at? Because a lot of issues like assault, rape, women will be together sharing, their experiences. But men sort of are like, oh, I don't know what my place is. Like, should I be in this conversation? Should I not? And it sort of like gets, put in the corner as like a woman's issue, like something that we have to cope with or have like a support group for each other, over here. But the thing that I think is super important that isn't happening is men joining in this fight and saying, like, we are going to speak out against rape culture. Like, when we see a woman getting pressured into sex at a party, like, we're gonna fucking do something. Sorry.
No,
we're gonna do something.
Because something
we're gonna change the culture.
Prevalent.
You know, like, we're a part of this. This is our issue. You know, we're by and large the people who are doing the assaulting, you know, or the harassing. Not that, you know, men can't also, you know, be survivors. Of course they can. But I'm saying, you know, by and large, we're finding out so many women are, you know, survivors. So I really want to call on all the men in Chicago, all the activists to join this fight. You know, I saw Tarana Burke. She's the founder of the Me Too movement, not the hashtag, but, you know, years and years ago, she started this movement of saying Me Too, like, as a call and response to someone who was saying, you know, this happened to me. And she found as a, you know, social worker, advocate, that the best thing she could say was, like, Me Too, like, it also happened to me. And so that's how it started. So I just saw her speak at the School of the Art Institute the other night, and she said exactly the same thing. Like, this movement was started to center Black women on, you know, with this issue. Like, so the whole event was centered around Black girls. Like, you walk into the ballroom where the event was, and the whole front of the room had, you know, maybe over 1 to 200 young Black girls, you know, elementary school age, wearing shirts that said "Got Consent," which was just like shock, you know, like, it's like, just to think about, you know, that we live in a society where we have to talk to, like, 5-year-olds or 8-year-olds about consent, like, is really sad, but it's so necessary. And that whole event was just, like, mind-blowing. And she also reiterated the point that I was feeling, was that, you know, the Me Too hashtag is just about exposing, like, Harvey Weinstein, or exposing Kavanaugh, or, like, you know, fighting Kavanaugh. That's not going to deal with the systemic issue. Like, yes, I don't want him to be on the Supreme Court, and we need to, like, look at this from, like, a multifaceted approach, not just one guy.
And there's a lot of issues that do need to be addressed about this. It's clearly an issue that's much more prevalent than a lot of people realize. And as we push forward and as we finish this interview up, I know we can keep on talking for hours about this, because this is very important. People need to be speaking up about this. People need to be getting actively involved. I think for our viewers and subscribers, if they want to follow you on social media, where can they follow you? Where can they find you so that they can perhaps maybe attend one of your events, participate, contribute, get involved? Where can they find you real quick?
On Twitter, I'm at the Shana East, SHANAEAST. I'm not that active on Twitter, but you can find me Shana East on Facebook, SHANAEAST. Is my profile name, and then I have the Illinois Progressive Network Facebook page and Our Revolution Illinois, and I'm sure that they can ask you as well if they can't find me.
Yes.
But yes, please, you know, reach out if you have any desire to work on any of the things that I talked about, to join this international progressive international left network. And you know, hear from folks from Europe, and hopefully we can do some outreach and get more in other continents would be my next.
That's true, and that's a very good note to end it on. Thank you so much for your time, for being here. This is Kit. Peace, everyone.